Hi, welcome back to Cheyenne, Wyoming Urban Gardener. This is Debbie, and you can see a great big pile of green beans. Yes, I just got to harvest the green beans off of the third planting of contender bush beans, as well as some of our Kentucky Wonders were still left, the Kentucky Wonder pole beans, and the rattlesnake pole beans were still left out near the corn. So there was still plenty of them out there. Some of them have been left to go to seed, but we're supposed to have frost tonight. We're getting down to 35 degrees Fahrenheit tonight. So there's a possibility that we could frost. We have a frost advisory out by the National Weather Service, so we'll find out. It was supposed to have frosted last night, and it didn't, fortunately. So I was able to get out there and harvest everything that needed to be harvested that was not frost tender. So here we are with our green beans. If it does frost, it will kill the vines on all of the green beans. So hopefully that won't happen and they'll continue, because there are still loads of green beans out there that are just now coming on, still blooming like crazy. That's how the contender bush beans are. They just keep producing. And we also have some royal burgundy bush beans that are drying right now, but they're not quite dry enough for me to go ahead and pull them off of the vines and finish drying them out to shell the beans. I might try to go ahead and do that anyway, just because I know that if it does frost on those beans, there's a possibility that it could end their viability for germination for next season. So I may get out there and do that. We have a little bit of light left, but I also wanted to show you our cabbage. I did go ahead and harvest 6 of the cabbage. You can see those here. Very, very pretty. There are some red cabbage and some green cabbage. So we are hoping that we do not lose all of these plants out here to frost. Our cantaloupes are pretty much done. We did go ahead and pull the last cantaloupe off of there. We had one Crenshaw that was left, but we had already pulled one of them. That one is just too small, so it will not finish out. And then there was a couple more small cantaloupes back here, and I may go ahead and just cut those off and see if they are ready. There's a possibility that they are. They just haven't slipped from the vine yet. And we've got our dahlias, but our dahlias are still blooming like crazy, so hopefully they will not get hit by frost. And then, of course, we have our tomatillos right here. And these guys have tomatillos in there, but they're just not quite finished yet. Almost. I mean, they're right there at where they need to be, but unfortunately, they're just not finished yet, and this one looks like it has broken. So that one, regardless, would have most likely ended anyway. So we'll kind of prop that one up like we did our other one that broke earlier in the season. So anyway, I hope that we don't lose everything out here. We've still got tomatoes from the huge tomato vine from Sandy at Suburban Homestead, Wyoming /Arizona. And it is blooming. There have been some little tomatoes come up on the vines. There are 2 of them. And I will move these into the house tonight, and then bring them back out when it's warmer. We are supposed to have temperatures go back up here shortly, but then they go back down again. So it's going to be this up and down yo-yo of fall. So anyway, these have lots of blooms on them. We were hoping to get a tomato from them, but I think it was just too late in the season when we planted these. And I didn't get the seed until sometime in July, so it's just too late in the season. But we gave it a good try. And we've got some dill out here. I'll need to move that in the house as well, because dill is not frost hardy. And that dill is not very old. It's only a few weeks old. And we need dill for pickling. We still have cucumbers to pickle. I went ahead and plucked all of the cucumbers today, so you can see the vines are pretty much done. The temperatures have just been too cold for them at this point. So they've still a few cucumbers hanging on, and if those vines somehow survive through the frost, they will continue on, and we'll probably get some misshapen cucumbers out of them. But all in all, I can pretty much say the season for cucumbers and cantaloupes and things like that is done, especially here in Wyoming. We're gardening zone 5A, 5B, in case you didn't know. And if you are watching and you have a similar garden zone, then this is what you can look at as far as the garden zone is concerned. We're actually past our first frost date by quite a bit. Our first frost date is usually around September 15th or 21st. Usually it's even earlier than that, in my experience, and we are all the way out to this late and still have not had a frost. And supposed to happen tonight, was supposed to happen last night and did not, but it looks like it will happen tonight. So we've got all of these things out here that we need to take in, at least the tomato plants. We're going to take in this celosia. I believe this is the celosia. And we're going to take in our mum and our oregano and our cilantro. The spinach should be okay through a frost. And we've got some basil out here, but I already took a bunch of basil in, and I can't save all of the basil. So unfortunately, that basil is just susceptible to getting frost killed. And several other plants out here that I just cannot take in. I just don't have all of that room. We may go ahead and take the tomatillos in, but they are very large at this point. The one in the back is over 6 feet wide, and it just really took off in the last few days on size. So I'm just not sure. It's just they're really too big to really take inside, so I'm not real sure we'll do that. I plucked all the tomatoes off of our yellow pear tomato vines. They may survive the frost because they're actually up off the ground in their containers quite a bit, and frost usually starts happening at ground level first. So we'll see. They may survive it, they may not, I don't know. Lettuces and things like that are a little frost hardy. We did go ahead and pull our Tahitian squash. 2 of them were ready. 1 was not quite ready, but it'll finish up inside. I just laid it here for just a moment. And of course we got all of our green beans, and we will secure a lot of the other plants that we're worried about. We did pull all of the Kellogg's breakfast tomatoes off of the vines. They are now inside. I'll show you those in just a moment. And our lemon cucumbers are just going to have to be susceptible to frost. I will pull what I can off of them, but for the most part, the vine is going to be done for. And so will all of our squash vines. And we do have some squash in there. Unfortunately, that was just not quite ready. And we do have 3 sweet potato vines out here that I planted as an experiment. I'm not too worried about those getting frosted on because it was an experiment this season to see whether or not we can get decent sweet potatoes here. We can, so I'll be planting some sweet potatoes next season. And then of course we've got some flowers that are susceptible to the frost, like the asters and our petunias and things like that we just cannot take everything inside. So there is that. A lot of these plants will go through the frost okay, but our peppers will be done for. And we did get most of them off the vines anyway. There's only a couple left behind that were just too small right now. If it goes through and it doesn't frost, then hopefully we'll actually get those to a decent size. And I did find out that celery is light frost tolerant, so hopefully we will not lose all of our celery out here. We've got about 7 or 8 bunches that are left out here. And like I said, we did take some of our cabbage, but some of it is left behind that was just not ready. Cabbages are a little frost tolerant, so hopefully they'll go through it okay. And then, of course, a lot of these plants are just not going to survive it. And we just, like I said, cannot take everything in because we just don't have room for all of that. But we will take our mints in. Our mints are not, so far have not been able to survive winter here. I've only had one that has done that. All of these plants out here, as far as beets, kale, turnips, they'll all survive a frost. So will radishes, most lettuces. So we'll see if everything survives. Anyway, let's go in and take a look at those tomatoes. So here's all of our tomatoes, all of our giant ox heart tomatoes and our Kellogg's breakfast tomatoes. I have weighed them. They're all about 15 ounces, especially this one right here. I know these are Kellogg's breakfast tomatoes, so they do not look the prettiest, especially on the bottom. But they do turn out to be delicious tomatoes. And there's some of them that are not like that on the bottom. They just have a tendency to be ugly tomatoes, but taste really good. And here's this one. So that is the Kellogg's breakfast tomatoes, and now here is one of the giant ox hearts. Giant ox hearts are weighing anywhere between 15 ounces to 10 ounces. This is one that was 10. But you can see they are still fairly large tomatoes. This one got bruised a little bit, but it had already started turning color. So hopefully it'll turn color and we can get that one canned up since it is bruised a little. Here's one that was a little bit larger. You can see that classic ox heart shape. And this one looks like it was actually getting a little bit of color as well on it. And then there's a lot of our peppers in there as well. I just went ahead and got a full big basket. This basket weighs about 50 pounds with all the peppers and tomatoes, mostly tomatoes that are in here. And I did can some tomatoes today, and you can see there are some that are already ripening. Those are some of my leftover super sauce tomatoes. Look at that nice tomato. That is a Kellogg's breakfast tomato as well. And look how nice and big that is. And then we got some old German tomatoes. They did not get quite as large in here. And I think some of them actually crossed with our giant ox hearts because I've seen some very odd shaped ones in here. But anyway, all nice big tomatoes. This will be a quite good amount of canning. And hopefully we'll get a few of these to slice, like some of these that already have a little bit of color on them. And we did go ahead and get all of our yellow pear tomatoes. And we had a few sun gold cherry tomatoes as well. So you can see we have a box full of cherry tomatoes here. A lot of them already had color on them. Surprisingly enough, I walked out this morning and one of the plants had mostly all this color already ripening yellow pear tomatoes, and it just happened overnight. But anyway, large box of tomatoes there, yellow pear tomatoes. And whatever we don't end up eating is what I'll just turn into some tomato sauce and with the skin on. And then there is our other two big Tahitian squash. They are quite big, almost as big as the box, holding our pumpkins that I had went ahead and gotten removed off the vines. And here is our pumpkins. This is either a Guido Cossaman squash or a Boston marrow. It turned out a very funny shape. It is large. This guy is large and in charge. Anyway, it turned out to be a very odd shape. These seeds came from suburban homesteader Wyoming / Arizona. And I am sure, even if it did cross-pollinate or whatever, that this guy is going to be absolutely delicious because look at that nice, rich color on there. And I'm sure it's got a lot of flesh inside. And then we had a couple of squash that I do believe crossed-pollinated last year on my end. And I think this is possibly a zucchini crossed with something else. And I had two of those that are very elongated like that. And then I had one that turned out warty, but also elongated. And I can tell that it crossed with a pumpkin, and probably the ones that I have saved from a warty pumpkin that I had a couple of seasons ago, but I'm not real sure what the other part of the cross is. And we got a couple of very nice jack-o'-lanterns. This one had actually already separated itself from the vine, and I didn't even realize it. It was just sitting out there. So this one is nice, huge pumpkin. And then we got another nice large pumpkin right there. And then our white pumpkin that you've seen a couple of times in other videos. And then a smaller pumpkin. So we have all of that. And then we have all of our red curry squash that we had gotten in a previous harvest. And we still have some squash and zucchini left over from the summer, late summer. And then we still have some cherry tomatoes down in there as well as some super sauce tomatoes left from vines. So that is a load of food. Look at all of that. So I love seeing this in the fall. And then we will just, basically I'm letting these cure right now. They're in my dining room. We keep our house at about 68 degrees, so it is not super warm in here, and they will cure just fine, as they've done many, many, many seasons over the past 7 years of curing on our dining room table. And then we'll move these into a dark place. So as you can see, nice. So anyway, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell for notices on new videos as they come out. I'm going to run in and help my daughter carry in some of these plants. We'll see you in the next one.